Hi everybody. Today let's talk about Chapter 5, Section 2, Verifying Trig Identities. Now this is where we go back to our Trig identity sheet. You should have that written down. You should have the reciprocal identities, you should have the quotient identities, you should have the Pythagorean identities. So just to do a little review, the reciprocals should be a no-brainer. Sine is 1 over cosecant, cosecant is 1 over sine, and so on. The quotient identities, okay, we know that tangent of theta is equal to the sine of the angle divided by the cosine of the angle. And we also know that the cotangent of theta is then the cosine of theta over the sine of theta. Now these could also be squared. So you could go cotangent squared is equal to cosine squared over sine squared. If you need to use that, you can use that. The Pythagoreans, we know that sine squared x plus cosine squared x is equal to 1. If we divide both of these by cosine squared, then we have tangent squared x plus 1 is equal to 1 over cosine squared, which is secant squared. Okay, and that's another fundamental identity. This one's new to us today. And then when we divide everything by sine, we have 1 plus cotangent squared x is equal to cosecant squared x. Used a little more infrequently, but pops up once in a while. Okay, so we have the Pythagoreans, we have the quotients, we have the reciprocals. Now the question then becomes, how are we going to use them? Now, the difference between simplifying and, let's say, verifying is simplifying does not yield an answer. Okay, verifying, we know what the answer is supposed to be. We're just trying to work each side in order to get there. Today our focus is on verifying. Simplifying, just simplify. There can be many, many different answers. Verifying today, we know what the answer is supposed to be. So let's go ahead and see if we can get there. Excuse me. All right. Suppose I'm given a problem like sine x over 1 plus cosine x plus cosine x over sine x is equal to cosecant x. Now, the difference between the problems that we were doing in the last section, which was just simplifying, and the problems that we're doing in this section, which is verifying, is we know this expression is supposed to equal cosecant x. We just have to show what those steps are in order to get there. All right? Now, in order to do this, there are certain guidelines that we need to follow. Okay? One. Okay, number 1, work each side of the equal sign independently. In other words, you can't move something from one side of the equation to the other. They're simply giving you what the answer is supposed to be. So I can't subtract cosine x over sine x from both sides. We're not solving an equation. We're verifying that this expression simplifies to this, or this expression simplifies to the left side. Now, there are a few different ways to do that. We want to factor, add fractions, square, find a common denominator, perform the operation. Whatever it tells us to do is what we're going to do. Okay, so if it says factor, then factor it. If it says add the fractions, then add the fractions. If it says find the common denominator, then find the common denominator. In other words, perform the operation. Okay? Number 3, you can substitute with all of the identities that we have. Okay? Number 4, I'm going to say try and get it all into terms of sine and cosine. Finally, number 5, try something. There are multiple paths here, guys, okay? There's not one way to do these, and it's frustrating as heck when you're first starting out. The more you do them. All right, so let's go back to this problem. The first thing that I look at is everything on the left is in terms of sine and cosine. Okay, it's in terms of sine and cosine. I could turn cosecant into 1 over sine. That would be